Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel and the second part of the test of the choked Polygon Lothar Walter barrel in the FX Impact M3. In my previous video I was testing the slugs in the 13 grain range, but today we'll just turn it up by a little notch and test the 15 grainers from NSA and the 16 grainers from H&N and SAN. I'll test them in the exact same way as I did with the 13 grainers. So we'll start out at 34 meters, where I will test them at a velocity range between 870 feet per second and all the way up to perhaps 1020 feet per second. And in this way we can see at which velocity the slugs performs the best. And after the test at 34 meters, I'll extend the range to 61 meters here at this magnificent facility. Indoors, no rain, no wind, no nothing. The only one who can make a mistake here is this guy behind the trigger. In the previous video, I was answering the questions about why I chose this particular barrel and how to make it fit into an M3. So I will advise you to go back and watch the first part of the test to get an answer to all these questions. I'll make sure to leave a link to that particular video at the end of this video. But let's start out at 34. Sorry, it seems like there's something down here that I keep bumping my feet into, and it's some kind of a metal rod. Hey, it has a hole in it. It is an unchoked version of the Polygon Lothar Walter barrel, and I'll be testing this particular barrel in the exact same way as I've done with the choked version of the Lothar Walter barrel. If you are in the market for a Lothar Walter barrel, look no further than this place, DB Schritzboard. It is a Dutch company. I'll leave a link to their webpage in the description of this video. They have barrels ranging from 177 and all the way up to 35. So there's all the barrel you will ever need. So now let's start the test at 34 meters. I recently found out that here on my dual bottle adapter from Saber Tactical, there's a switch, and if I turn this on, I apply machine gun mode. So buckle up and look forward to this test of the 16 grainers from H&N. And looking at the target from that test, you can see that the first group was at 883 feet per second and ended with a disastrous three-shot group at 960 feet per second. The best group in this test was at 883 feet per second, so that's the velocity that I'll be shooting at when I'm extending the range here to 61 meters. You can see that at 926 feet per second there was 3 shots, but this and they look like they're pretty close, but actually there is one of the shots that missed the target completely. So the best group for the H&Ns at 34 was 883 feet per second. So with the 16 grainers from H&N completed, let's move on and look at the 15 grainers from NSA. And looking at the result of the 15 grainers from NSA, they look like this. I started out at 880 feet per second and shot my last group just past 1,000 feet per second at 1,013 feet per second. There were some good groups here. I think the best one shot was at 904 feet per second. It was a 12 millimeter group, and the next one is at 933 feet per second, also a 12 millimeter group. And sorry for the noise, the ventilation just started here at the facility. But it seems like there are a few options when I have to choose the right velocity for the test of the 15 grainers here at 61 meters. So now let's move on and test the 16 grainers from sand. And the target from the test of the sands at 34 meters looks like this. I started the velocity at 870 feet per second and ended at 1022. And you can see that there are actually some pretty decent groups here. Starting out at 901 feet per second, it was a 7 millimeter group. And again at 979 feet per second, it was a 8 millimeter group. And the last one actually at 1022 was a 9 millimeter group. So also here with the sands, there are a few options to choose from when I have to choose the velocity when I'm shooting at 61 meters. But with the first part of the test completed, let's move this whole setup back there so I can extend the range to these 61 meters. Now everything's been set up here at 61 meters. I am looking at a velocity around 883 feet per second, but before I start punching in the groups, I'll just do some fine adjustments to see if I can get some changes in accuracy by fine-tuning just a little bit. But after that, I'll take my target and punch in a 5-shot group. Last one. That was a pretty decent group. Let's measure it up. So, back with the target, and it looks like this, or like this. You can see that it is a 21 millimeter group, and I actually ended up shooting them at 885 as an average. So yeah, pretty good. But let's move on to the 15 grainers from NSA. And as you can see here, there are two similar groups. The first one is at 904 and the next one is at 933. So I'll actually attempt both these velocities and see at which velocity they perform the best. not too bad. Let's take a look. And back with the target. It looks like this, or as you can see here, it is a 24 millimeter group, and I shot it at 904 feet per second in average. So not entirely what I was expecting, but let's crank up the velocity to around 933 to see if it works out better at that velocity. Very, very low. Not too impressive, but yeah, let's check it out. Yeah, and back with the target, it looks like this. It is a 31 millimeter group here at 61 meters, and it is not entirely what I expected. Well, what we can conclude of this is that the better velocity for the 15 grainers was at 904 feet per second. Now let's move on and take a look at the sands, and once again look at this here or here. You can see that there are three different velocities that I would like to test these slugs at, and that's 901, or just around 900, and then again at 979, and actually at 1022. The groups are from 7 millimeters and up to 9 millimeters on 1022. So yeah, let's see how the sands performs, the 16 grain sands performs here at 61 meters. That was a good group. Come on. Yeah, let's check it out. Okay, this is a different story. This is how it looks. It is a 14 millimeter group here at 61 meters with an average velocity of 910. I was fiddling a little bit with the velocity and found out that it was around there that they performed the best. So now let's move on and test the sands once again, but this time at 980 feet per second. And once again, I'm doing this because the sands seems to perform pretty well at different velocities, so I just want to rule out at which velocity they perform the best. So now let's look at the group that I will punch in at around 980 feet per second. One. Not too bad. Let's check it out. Okay, and the target looks like this. It is a 17 millimeter group, and I shot it at 886 feet per second in average. So the slower velocities seem to fit better so far, but now let's go completely nuts and turn the velocity all the way up to 1020 feet per second. That was a good start. Even though that last one was a bit high, that was that was some group. Let's check it out. This is the target. This is the target, and it looks like this. It is a 15 millimeter group here at 61 meters at an average velocity of 1021 feet per second. I think that's pretty good. I can't remember the last time I shot a 16 grain slug at that velocity. Actually, I don't think I've ever done it before, and with an accuracy that looks like this. But that was all the testing. So now let's look at the whole thing, both the 13 grainers and the heavier slugs, and draw some kind of a conclusion. So now it's time to a conclusion, at least of what we've accomplished in these two tests of the slugs in the 13 grain range and the ones in the 15 and 16 grain range. So let's look at the results from today. I started out with the H&N 16 grainers, and with those I shot a 21 millimeter group. Then I went to the 15 grainers from NSA, and because they performed quite similar on the test at 34 meters, I decided to shoot at two different velocities, 904 and 930 feet per second. And the one that was the best is the one that I shot at 904 feet per second and shooting a 24 millimeter group. Then we came to the sands, and they performed well at 3 different velocities in the first test, so I decided to test them at these velocities here on 61 meters as well. And at 910 feet per second, they shot a 14 millimeter group, which was the best. After that, at 986 feet per second, they shot a 17 millimeter group. The last one, quite impressive, I actually think, was at 1021 feet per second, where they shot a 15 millimeter group. So if we are to determine a winner of this test, it is definitely the slugs from SAN. Let's compare these results to the one that I shot in the 13 grain range. I started out with the H&Ns 13 grainers, and with those I shot a group of 24 millimeters, and then testing out the JSP knockouts, they shot a 22 millimeter group, and of course I ended up shooting the 13 grain sands and made this a 9 millimeter group. So what we can conclude here is that you can shoot slugs in the choked version of this Polygon barrel from Lothar Walther. And if we are to determine if we should shoot 13 or 15, 16 grainers, if you take the average group size of both tests, the average group size of the 13 grainers were 18.3 millimeters, whereas with the Heavier Slugs they were just past 19.66 millimeters. Now that's me being a nerd, but I don't think that we should get into these digits of millimeters to determine which weight of slugs are the best. But if I was to choose personally which slug I would shoot in this particular barrel, I would definitely go for the 13 grain sands. I definitely see some possibilities in especially the 16 grain sands as well, but I like to shoot with my regulator low, and having a regulator of what was that, 104 in the first test, and in this test the regulator was at, I think it was 127. I'm not sure. I'll show you a picture right here. And I just like this whole idea of having lots of shots and not using too much power to get the same velocity that you would get if you crank up the power. But we have another test coming up, as I said earlier, testing the Polygon barrel without a choke, and I'll test that in the exact same way as I've done with the 13 grainers and 15 and 16 grainers. So if you're interested in that test, I suggest that you hit the subscribe button right down there in the corner. Here towards the end of the video, I just want to interrupt, because sitting here editing the video, I know that there's one question that just will keep on emerging from a lot of you guys. Will he make a comparison between the Lothar Walter barrels and the FX liners? And the answer is yes, I will, but I'll wait by doing this until I have tested both the choked and the unchoked version of the Lothar Walter barrel. So another good reason to subscribe to my channel. And with that said, that is the end of part 2 of the Lothar Walter test here on my channel Viking Airgunner. So I hope you enjoyed this whole journey. I'm sure that I did. So until next time, take care and shoot safe.